This time of the year in the NBA is super fun, but it's also really crazy. As someone like me that follows all these different rumors and news, trying to figure out what's going to happen in the draft, the offseason, coaching changes, this time of the year is just super hectic. And the first rumor I want to talk about today, of course, is the LA Lakers seemingly hiring their new head coach. Now, it hasn't been confirmed by the team yet, but Shams did send out a tweet saying that the Lakers are zeroing in on JJ Redick as their new head coach. And that is basically just Shams' way of saying, hey, that's where their focus is now, and he still has the ability later to go back and say, oh, just kidding, if he's wrong. But it seems very likely at the moment that JJ Redick is going to be the new head coach of the LA Lakers. And this has been kind of trending in this direction for a little while now. I said this a few weeks ago that it seemed like JJ Redick was going to be the coach of the Lakers because once they got rid of Darvin Ham and they kind of opened up the coaching search process, it seemed like it was taking them a while to finally arrive on a particular coach. And to me, that meant that they kind of already had JJ Redick in mind and they kind of had already had him locked in as the guy. But of course, he's got another job right now. He's got to call these finals games. And he has said publicly in the past that it's a goal of his to call the finals. And he's going to get that opportunity this year. It's an opportunity he didn't think he was going to get at the beginning of the season because Doc Rivers was the main guy on the broadcast for ESPN at the beginning of the year. He leaves, and now JJ Redick takes over. He's going to call the finals. And presumably, he is also going to be the LA Lakers' next head coach. And this is particularly interesting, of course, because of the LeBron angle here. We talked before about what it would mean if the Lakers ended up going with JJ Redick and potentially brought in Bronny as well, in terms of it being clear that LeBron still has a lot of influence and control over the Lakers. Now, it's not guaranteed that any of this stuff is going to happen, but it does appear to be trending in that direction. Before we get to the rest of the LeBron stuff, though, really quickly, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. The NBA Finals is, of course, an awesome time to get started with PrizePicks, and they're making it that much easier for you as well. They have a free square selection where if Jason Tatum scores a single point in game one, that is a free square on your selection. So you can combine that with some of the WNBA games, some of these other sports we've got going on as well, and you can go into it knowing that you have a free square selection for Jason Tatum just for game one. So make sure you guys get in your selections on PrizePicks for game one with that free square. If you've never tried PrizePicks before, it is just you against these numbers. You pick between 2 and 6 selections. You can include that free square this time as well. And if you're correct, you pick more or less for each of these numbers. And if you're correct, you win some cash. Another way to help you out as well is there is a link in the description you guys can click. You can use code SPORTING, a 100% deposit match up to $100 on PrizePicks to get you started. You have that free score as well. And as I said, with the finals going on right now, this is a great time to get started with PrizePicks. It's super fun to just add a little bit to your viewing experience if you feel like you have a decent idea of what's going to happen from game to game. So check out PrizePicks, check out that free score, click the link in the description as well. And thank you again to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Back to the Lakers now. JJ Redick being hired as the head coach of the Lakers, presumably, to me means a couple of things. One, it seems likely that LeBron will be returning to the Lakers next season. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have hired JJ Redick if it wasn't, kind of a LeBron decision. There's merits to JJ Redick as a head coach that we're going to get to here in a little bit, but presumably they're assuming that LeBron is going to return to the Lakers, and then they're going to have JJ Redick as well. Of course, those guys have a really good working relationship as currently podcast co-hosts, which is just a strange story in the first place. And I think this is an indicator that LeBron very clearly still has a lot of control within the Lakers organization. Now, separate from that, the question is JJ Redick going to be a head coach? Is this a good idea? You kind of have to separate a couple of things, right? Because yes, it is absolutely strange that JJ Redick is currently hosting a podcast with LeBron James and is now going to be the head coach of the Lakers. That's strange. If you separate that and you look at JJ Redick's resume as a player, the other stuff that he's done, obviously within the media, like clearly he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing, and separate from like really being able to gain the respect and attention of the team, with LeBron being there and of course him being a younger guy as well, there is a distinct possibility that JJ Redick is going to be a good head coach. I'm not necessarily betting on it because of the situation that the Lakers have put themselves in with, JJ Redick being obviously a LeBron James hire here, but it's definitely possible. Like he has a mind for this kind of stuff, and he's clearly knowledgeable. And this is a goal of his to be a head coach of an NBA team. He's had interviews before as well. So maybe it's going to end up working out. I just think that it's a strange situation for the rest of the team, much less for Redick himself. So it seemed like this was the direction that things were going, and now we just wait and see how good exactly JJ Redick is going to be as head coach, because there's going to be a pressure-packed situation there with the Lakers. But the NBA Finals, of course, are not the only thing coming up. We've got the NBA draft and the offseason as well. And the draft specifically, we've got some rumors kind of all over the place right now. The first thing I want to talk about here is the Houston Rockets, who hold the 3rd overall pick in the draft, seem to be pretty active at the moment. So there has been a good amount of speculation connecting them to a handful of prospects, specifically in the front court in this draft. Someone to play alongside of Alperen Sengun, someone to provide them a bit more defensive help at the 5 spot. If they don't make the selection, though, a couple of teams have been connected to Houston. First and foremost is Brooklyn. This is actually Brooklyn's pick in the first place, by the way. And they continue to want Mikal Bridges. Like, they continue to try and have conversations with the Nets. Lots and lots of rumors about Houston continually pushing for Bridges the way that they have for a while now. They tried to get him in the middle of the year. They tried to get him last offseason. They think that Mikal Bridges is a perfect fit for their roster, and they know that they can go to the Nets and provide them something that is more valuable to them than any other team, and that is their own draft picks. The best thing the Nets could do right now would be to, in terms of rebuilding their team, would be to get their own picks back and be bad. That's the best way to get good in the NBA, is by being bad, and the Nets don't currently have that option. So it makes sense, and it's smart for Houston to be aggressive in trying to get Mikal Bridges, because theoretically they have the best offer out there for him. Now, some of the reports seem to make it seem like Houston and the Nets are like in discussions on Mikal Bridges, whereas others are basically saying it's all Houston driven. The Nets aren't interested in trading away Mikal Bridges. They're not interested in having these trade discussions with the Rockets. And I think part of that is just because the 3rd overall pick in this particular draft isn't all that valuable. And the other part of that as well is the Nets still are angling themselves to try and add a star. And Mikal Bridges, they feel like, is a central piece of that. They think he is someone that other stars want to play with, and that they would like to try and add that guy this offseason or next offseason before deciding to finally go ahead and go into a full rebuild and trade away Bridges. But that's not the only team that Houston has been in contact with. It seems like there are discussions between them and potentially Atlanta moving up to 1. That 3 spot seems to be a spot that a handful of teams maybe would want to try and move into, depending on where the prospects fall. But as we kind of roll into our last set of rumors here, this NBA draft in particular, we know it's not very good. There seems to be a lot of movement possible either prior to the draft or the night of, for a couple of reasons. One, it seems like Atlanta would be willing to trade the 1st overall pick. If there's a prospect out there that another team really likes, it doesn't seem to be a ton of differentiation between, the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th picks in this draft. So there's a guy that a team really wants going up to 1. Seems like it would make sense for Atlanta. We've already talked about their situation in terms of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray. How much value does the 1st overall pick really have for them? What could they possibly move for it? And teams just don't really value these 1st-round picks that much. There are probably going to be a lot of teams that are shopping, non-lottery picks in the 1st round this year for veteran players. Like a team like Phoenix that actually has a 1st-round pick. A team like the Lakers that, has an opportunity to move up and down to the draft. The Nets are another team to be mentioned here. Like, there's veteran players out there, or not necessarily young stars, but like younger potential core pieces like Kyle Kuzma, guys like that are out there, and they're available potentially for some 1st-round picks. And it's just a weird situation with some teams might like a handful of players in this class, and others are like, this draft is terrible, we don't want any piece of this draft. And trying to find the middle ground of that seems really difficult. And basically, this last rumor, to me, what it's all saying is we're going to have a lot of movement. We're going to have a lot of picks being traded. We're going to have a lot of 1st-round picks being moved. And a lot of those like Kyle Kuzma-esque pieces on that kind of level being moved from team to team, because those guys are immensely more valuable in exchange for a 1st-round pick or a couple of 1st-round picks, especially in this particular class because it is so weak. And we're also seeing teams angling for these 2025 1st-round picks as well, because it seems like a class that certainly at the top is going to be very strong, and certainly in comparison to this 2024 class. And so even though the draft itself appears to be weak, I don't necessarily think that that means that we're going to have a quiet draft. Seems like we're going to have a very active NBA draft in terms of teams trading up, trading down, moving for veteran pieces, and that'll all lead us into an offseason that will be especially interesting as well, as all these teams are moving into this new era of the second apron and trying to figure out what the best ways are to build your team with those new rules in place. So a ton of stuff going on there, and we'll see exactly what happens, but those are the NBA rumors we got going on right now.